Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this press conference on this beautiful day in the West Seattle Junction. My name is Clay Eels. I am the Executive Director of the Southwest Seattle Historical Society, and I'm so glad we have so many board members of our society, current and former, here to witness this today. We are gathered today on behalf of a new group. It's a new group of the Historical Society, and we call it the We Love The Junction Task Force.
Woo! Yeah!
And today, we are announcing the launch of our campaign to seek city landmark status for the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building, the twin icons of the junction that you see behind us, the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building. Now, the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building represent the heart of the junction, which is why the logo and the slogan for our campaign is We Love The Junction. The launch of this campaign, which is authorized by a unanimous vote of our Southwest Seattle Historical Society Board of Trustees, comes on the heels of this past Wednesday's release of the West Seattle Junction Historical Survey. Now, you may recall that this 104-page report examined 58 buildings in the junction that are at least 40 years old. After careful study and consideration, the survey's professional architectural historian placed each one of those buildings into one of three categories. Category A buildings appear to have enough significance and architectural integrity to be potentially eligible as a city landmark. Category B buildings also may be landmark eligible, but additional research is needed to confirm this. And Category C buildings do not appear to be landmark eligible at this time. Two junction buildings were identified as Category A. The Campbell Building, built in 1918, which today is the home of Cupcake Royale, several other businesses, and many residential tenants. And the Hamm Building, built in 1926, which today is the home of Easy Street Records, several other businesses, and many residential tenants. Now, our campaign directly reflects the three key words of the Southwest Seattle Historical Society mission, which is to promote local history through education, preservation, and advocacy. This campaign also is the latest step in our organization's long track record of successfully pursuing city landmark status for buildings that are beloved in our community, that are standing today and that are getting new life as a direct result of our landmark efforts. You'll hear more about that later in the press conference. Our campaign will be grassroots. It will be directed by the all-volunteer We Love The Junction Task Force, which has a variety of events and activities planned, which invites the participation of everyone interested in this cause, and which is headed by three co-chairs whom you will meet shortly. Our campaign is also based on the principle of working with the owners of the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building to answer any questions, to address any concerns, and to seek their support at every stage of the process. We are grateful to report today that we are now in touch directly with the representatives of both the Campbell and the Hamm buildings, and that they have heard directly from us about our landmark campaign that we're announcing today, and that we anticipate ongoing conversations with them as the campaign proceeds. Now, it's important to note that there is no immediate threat to the Campbell Building or the Hamm Building that we know of. But in today's real estate climate, the one we have seen in recent years throughout the city, which our mayor, Ed Murray, who grew up in West Seattle, calls the biggest boom since the gold rush of the 1890s. It is not too soon for us to act to preserve these crown jewels. Now, why do we do this? It boils down to one word, and that's hope. We hope that not only our generations, but also the future generations of children and grandchildren who we will never know, that all of us will be able to experience and enjoy the irreplaceable touchstones that help us define and understand and share what it means to be a community. We know that none of us will live forever, but landmarking the unique structures that for the past century have created an attractive and vibrant center for connection and collaboration, for friendly commerce, for appreciation of the visionaries who came before us, for the inexpressible sense of home, and for affirmation of our humanity long after we are gone. This is the stuff of identity, of legacy, and of hope. So what does it mean to be a landmark? What does it mean for a building to be landmarked? Typically, landmark efforts are initiated by property owners, but there is no requirement under a city ordinance that an owner be in favor of the landmark process. In fact, anyone can seek landmark status for any building in Seattle that is at least 25 years old. But age is not everything. A landmarked building has to convey its significance and integrity. And it is important to remember that landmarking does not regulate the use or the tenancy of any building. Also, buildings designated as city landmarks are not untouchable. They can be maintained, they can be painted, they can have additions. An owner who wants to make these types of changes to a landmark building merely needs to work with city staff to ensure that any proposed changes meet certain standards identified in the landmark designation. In addition, not everyone knows that there are incentives for landmarking that can help a building owner financially. These incentives include building code relief, zoning code relief, and breaks in property tax evaluation. Plus, landmark buildings regularly qualify for grant opportunities for capital improvements, such as a yearly program that is offered by the county's Cultural Services Agency for Culture. So, what are the nuts and bolts for us to seek landmark status for the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building? First, a detailed nomination for each building must be submitted to the city. For a nomination to have a good chance of approval, it usually is researched and written by a professional historian or architect who has experience in preparing such documents, and that costs money. Our Historical Society has applied for a For Culture grant to pay a consultant to prepare nominations for the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building. The earliest we will know about receiving this funding will be early May. Preparing the nominations will take another couple of months. Then another couple of months for the Seattle Landmarks Preservation Board to give initial approval to the nominations. Then another couple of months for the board to consider designating the buildings as landmarks. This is a public process with public meetings that invite public comment every step of the way. And a public process often takes longer than anticipated. Well, the long story short is that we will likely be at this landmark campaign through the end of this fall. In the meantime, we seek the help and support of everyone listening to this and everyone reading about this. Anyone who truly loves the West Seattle Junction can play a significant role in this campaign. And this is where I am delighted for you to meet the three co-chairs of this campaign. First up is Peter Nelson. Peter is a West Seattle native. He's a longtime West Seattle resident. He's a museum exhibit designer, and he is currently vice president of our Southwest Seattle Society Board. Peter?
Thank you, Clay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. I'm proud to be part of this landmarking campaign while representing the Southwest Seattle Historical Society as Vice President of the board. This organization is made up of generations of dedicated volunteers, from people who were born and raised West Seattle to those who chose to live here years ago, along with those who have just recently begun calling this community home. And it is this volunteering with the Southwest Seattle Historical Society that has empowered our task force to be lead in this project of seeking landmark status for these two buildings. The best part is that this is just the beginning of the continued effort to preserve our community. I'm here today because I grew up in the Junction. My friends and I spent every day hanging out here. We would meet friends from other schools, other neighborhoods, and hang out in the different stores, the comic shops, the arcades, the record shops, the candy stores, the hobby shops, the art shops. We all would later become employees of the Junction, joining the strong community of restaurant industry workers and owners of small businesses. This is a community of people that continues to welcome new friends, especially those who appreciate this place for what it is and who call this place home. It is with these people that the Junction continues to stand as the joining place of this community. We on this task force would welcome those in our community who feel at home here and love the Junction to join us through volunteering, becoming a member of our organization, and supporting us in the coming months as we celebrate this place through the landmarking of these central buildings. In addition, we invite other organizations throughout the peninsula to join us in advocating for this kind of preservation of our neighborhoods and communities. Thank you, and back to you, Clay.
Don't you just love the background noise? Thank you, Peter. Next is Brad Chrisman, also a West Seattle native, a lifelong West Seattle resident, the editorial coordinator of the West Side Story history book, and I gotta say, one of my best friends ever, and a longtime volunteer and former board member of our organization. He has a not-so-little story to tell. Brad?
I'm here today because I believe that historic preservation is something that I can do, and I think really something that we can all do that can truly have a lasting impact on the future of the community. So that may sound somewhat contradictory, preserving history on one hand and the future on the other, but I believe that it's true, and in fact I know it's true. I know it because we've already done it 3 times, and each time we did it together. So the first time was in 1989. One day I got a call from Clay, and that was back when he was just about a month into his first year as the Historical Society president. He had noticed a tiny ad in the Seattle Times that said that the Admiral Theater was going to be showing its final movie a couple nights later. He said he thought we should get some friends together and go see it and sort of pay our respects to the Admiral. Now, the history of the Admiral Theater at that time was really fresh in our minds because just a couple years before that, Clay and I and some other journalists at the West Seattle Herald had just published West Side Story, the history book about the history of the West Side Peninsula. And Clay, in fact, had written the entertainment chapter in that book, which covered the history, and really the Admiral Theater had a starring role in that, along with the Portola Theater and the Granada Theater and Luna Park Amusement Park. And so when Clay called me to tell me about the Admiral, well, I've told this story many times, and I think each time the legend kind of grows. But I said, Clay, I'm surprised you're not organizing some kind of a campaign to save the Admiral. And there was a slight pause, and Clay on the other end of the line said, do you think we should? And I said, sure, yeah. And he said something like, I'll call you right back. Well, when he called back a short time later, he had already organized a phone tree. He had recruited someone to make campaign signs. And he had drafted a press release, and he asked me if I would create a petition that we could circulate in the community. 2 nights later, at what had been advertised as the last showing of movies at the Admiral Theater, we had an enthusiastic crowd there of supporters to save the Admiral. And within months, thousands of people had signed that petition. And in just 6 months, we succeeded in securing city landmark status for the Admiral. So think about that. And fast forward 27 years, and here we are today in the future. The Admiral's Theater is still with us. It has all of its charm and historic features still intact. And things are about to get even better because the Admiral is about to undergo $1 million renovation, something like that, that will turn it into a modern 4-screen theater while preserving all of its historical features. And all of that is happening because it has a great owner and great operator, and because of the landmark effort that was supported by thousands of people back starting in 1989. Fast forward again, and here we are today. The next two landmark campaigns that we did were in the mid-1990s. That's when the Historical Society spearheaded campaigns to save the Alki Homestead restaurant and just up the street, the building that became our birthplace of Seattle Log House Museum. So today, the Log House Museum is thriving, and the Admiral Homestead, in spite of a fire in 2009 that threatened its future, is undergoing another $1 million renovation. And that's happening because the homestead has a heroic new owner and because it is a city landmark. So when I say that I believe that historic preservation is something we can all do that has a lasting effect on our future, I say it because I know it to be true. Look at the Admiral Theater, look at the Log House Museum, look at the Alki Homestead Restaurant. Now, I mentioned that in the Save the Admiral campaign, we organized a phone tree, which sounds pretty funny today. That was because back in 1989, we didn't have things like email and the internet and social media. Today, when you sign our We Love The Junction statement of support, we'll ask you to provide your email address. On our brochure, you'll see that for the latest news about what's going on with the campaign, we'll direct you to our website, and which is welovethejunction.org. We also are going to have an Instagram account and a Twitter account, and We Love The Junction Facebook page. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank other members of our task force, Esther Armstrong and Cody Othout, who are volunteering their creative talents and organizational skills and enthusiasm to help manage a lot of that online and other activity. So we're hoping to get thousands of people, young and old, to sign our statement of support and sign up for our email list, like our Facebook page, and whatever one does with Twitter and Instagram. I don't know, but we have that. One more thing, in addition to the internet stuff, we haven't forgotten our roots. We're inviting everyone to an old-fashioned town hall meeting at 6 p.m. Wednesday, March 16th. 6 p.m. Wednesday, March 16th at the West Seattle Library. And that's where we'll answer questions, discuss the landmark nomination process, and provide more information on about the Junction Historical Survey that Clay mentioned earlier. So new or old school, one and all, we hope that everyone will join us. And back to you, Clay.
Oh, thank you, Brad. Memories. Good memories. Next is Crystal Dean, a West Seattle resident for the past 2 years, a hospitality professional, and one of the most enthusiastic volunteers we have, a member of our gala committee and our board of trustees. Crystal, come on up.
Thank you, Clay. Well, I'm talking to you as new blood of West Seattle. New blood in West Seattle. I moved here only 2 years ago, but very quickly got involved in the love of West Seattle, the community, small town feel. Very, very addicting. Immediately fell in love with that, had to get involved. West Seattle is all about loving our landmarks, as we all know, and I knew that I wanted to learn more about West Seattle's history and get involved as soon as I moved here. So it didn't take long for me to become a Southwest Seattle Historical Society board member. I'm a very active volunteer, as some of you may know, for many of our events in our organization. Let me tell you, I can make a really mean bag of buttered popcorn at the West Seattle outdoor movies. Mostly, though, it's about getting to know the people of West Seattle and hearing their stories about where their favorite West Seattle stomping ground was and is, and of course it always began and ends at Husky Deli. I am very proud to bring awareness to our community and helping to keep these great historical buildings here for years to come. Throughout this landmark campaign, we will be selling We Love The Junction buttons for just $1 a piece. So we have the two sizes. We have the 1 inch, very tiny, 1 inch in diameter, and then the 2 1/4 inch, and they're each just $1. Who wouldn't want to wear one of these buttons? You'll see many people already wearing them. You can purchase these in many of the different businesses throughout West Seattle. Immediately after this press conference, you'll be able to walk over with us to Husky Deli and you can purchase one, as well as get one of our brochures that we've made up, and this gives more information about what we're trying to do, more background, history, and then all of our contact information on how you can become involved as a community. You can also look for us tomorrow at the West Seattle Farmers Market. We'll be coming around talking to everybody, and this is our statement of support that you can sign, put your name, your email address, and that will enable you to follow us with different places that we are throughout the year, throughout the summer, get to know what we're doing and how it's going, basically follow our progression. You'll find us at many events already this year. So we've got the outdoor movies, obviously, that we'll be at. Summerfest, we will have a booth actually at Summerfest. We'll be right in between the Campbell Building and the Hamm Building. So please make sure that you come visit us. We'll have our statement of support, of course, buttons that we'll be selling at all of these events, and then also at different businesses throughout West Seattle. We also welcome your involvement. Any ideas about events that you think that we should be at, just go to our website. We love your hands-on involvement, and we can't wait to get started. So thank you so much for coming out, everybody, and we can't wait for this year. Back to you, Clay.
All right, we have one final speaker, somebody who needs no introduction, so I am just going to introduce the one and only owner of Husky Deli, Jack Miller. Come on up, say a few words for us.
Hello there. What I'd like to say is, you know, this great project we're doing here has a lot to do with the buildings, but even more so the businesses and the people that are running them. As the big buildings come and the new construction comes, there will be a lot of national chains and stuff, but the real treasure here is the people that, you know, they really got their butts on the line at their businesses. Their homes are all they own is all tied up in their business, and they're there every day. And it's amazing to know how many of these owners actually live within a short walking distance from the junction. And so it's, you know, when you look at Georgetown and you look at any of the little small areas where there's small independent businesses, if the rent is reasonable, people will put their tails on the line to put out a business and they'll work their butts off, but it's not possible unless they can afford it. So that's the treasure, another treasure we're trying to save, is all these people that work real hard just to get up every morning and have a business and be part of the community. And my hat's off to Clay and the bunch for this whole project. I think it's great. Thank you.